Most people think small-town America means apple pie and friendly neighbors. But scattered across this country are places where something went very, very wrong. Towns where the population dropped to zero overnight, where entire families vanished without explanation, where locals warn outsiders to keep driving after dark. I've spent months researching the most disturbing small towns in America, and what I found will make you question everything you thought you knew about rural life. These aren't ghost stories or urban legends. These are real places with documented histories that'll keep you awake tonight. Some of these towns still have residents who refuse to talk about what happened. Others are completely abandoned, but the evidence of their dark past remains. We're counting down 18 places that prove sometimes the scariest monsters are human, and sometimes the most terrifying thing about a place is what people are willing to forget. 18. Centralia, Pennsylvania. The ground is literally on fire beneath your feet in Centralia. What started as a routine trash burning in 1962 ignited an underground coal seam that's been burning for over 60 years. The government evacuated nearly everyone by the 1980s, but a handful of residents refused to leave their homes above the inferno. Walk down what's left of Highway 61, and you'll see steam rising from cracks in the asphalt. The road buckles and splits where the earth beneath has collapsed into burning caverns. Graffiti covers the broken pavement, but locals say some of the messages appear overnight with no explanation of who wrote them. According to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, the fire could burn for another 250 years. The few remaining residents, maybe 8 people total, live in a town where the cemetery headstones are warmer than they should be, and basement walls crack from the heat below. One resident told a reporter in 2019 that she sometimes hears sounds coming from the abandoned houses, even though they've been empty for decades. 17. Bodie, California. Bodie looks exactly like a Wild West movie set, except the bullet holes in the walls are real, and the stories about what happened here are worse than any Hollywood script. This former gold mining town peaked at 10,000 residents in the 1870s, but violence and lawlessness made it one of the most dangerous places in America. The Bodie State Historic Park maintains about 200 buildings in arrested decay, meaning they're preserved exactly as they were when the last residents fled. Walk through the Methodist church and you'll find hymnals still open to the last song sung. Peer into the schoolhouse windows and children's coats still hang on hooks as if class just ended. 16. Cahaba, Alabama. Alabama's first state capital became a ghost town for reasons that still make locals uncomfortable. Cahaba thrived until the 1870s, when residents began abandoning their homes with no official explanation. The town that once housed the state government now sits empty along the Alabama River, and what happened to drive everyone away remains largely undocumented. Archaeological surveys have uncovered evidence of hastily abandoned homes, meals left on tables, clothes still hanging in wardrobes. According to the Alabama Historical Commission, families left behind valuable possessions that would have taken weeks to replace, suggesting they fled quickly. The most disturbing discovery came in 2003 when researchers found a mass grave containing remains that predate the town's official founding. Local historians have no record of who these people were or how they died. The Alabama Department of Archives won't discuss the findings publicly, citing ongoing investigation, but that investigation has lasted over 20 years with no resolution. 15. Bannack, Montana. Montana's first territorial capital has a main street that looks like a movie set, but the history here is darker than any Western film. Bannack was founded during the 1862 gold rush, and by 1864, it had become the headquarters for one of the most notorious criminal organizations in American history. Sheriff Henry Plummer ran what locals called the Innocents, a gang of road agents who robbed and murdered travelers. What made Bannack truly terrifying was that the law enforcement was leading the crime. Plummer used his position to identify wealthy travelers, then his gang would ambush them on remote mountain roads. The Montana Historical Society estimates Plummer's gang killed over 100 people in 2 years. When vigilantes finally caught up with them in 1864, they hanged Plummer and his deputies from a gallows they'd built themselves. Today, you can still see the hanging tree, and locals report that photographs taken near it often show unexplained shadows, even on sunny days. 14. Garnet, Montana. Garnet sits 6,000 feet up in the Montana mountains, accessible only by a winding dirt road that's impassable half the year. This former mining town peaked at 1,000 residents in the 1890s, but what drove them away wasn't economic collapse or natural disaster. According to Bureau of Land Management records, the entire population vanished over a single winter. The buildings remain remarkably preserved in the dry mountain air. Walk into J.K. Wells Hotel and you'll find the guest register still open to January 1912, with no entries after that date. The general store's shelves still hold canned goods with readable labels. Children's toys sit in the one-room schoolhouse as if recess just ended. But here's what makes Garnet truly unsettling. Every winter, the access road gets snowed in for months, cutting off the town completely. BLM rangers who check on the site each spring report finding fresh footprints in the snow around the buildings, even though no one should be able to reach the town. In 2018, a ranger found a fire pit with warm ashes outside the hotel, but the road had been impassable for 3 months. 13. Rhyolite, Nevada. Rhyolite boomed and died faster than almost any town in American history. Founded in 1904 after a gold strike, it grew to 5,000 residents by 1907, complete with electric lights, telephone service, and a stock exchange. By 1916, it was completely abandoned. What makes Rhyolite creepy isn't just the rapid abandonment, but what residents left behind. The 3-story bank building still has money in the vault. According to the Nevada State Museum, when they finally opened it in 1974, they found $50,000 in gold coins and currency, untouched for 60 years. The most famous remaining structure is the Bottle House, built entirely from beer and liquor bottles. But locals avoid it after dark because of what they call the sounds. Multiple visitors have recorded audio of what sounds like a crowded saloon coming from inside the empty building. Voices, laughter, and piano music that stops the moment anyone approaches the door. Marker 12. Calico, California. Calico was California's largest silver mining town in the 1880s, with over 3,000 residents and a reputation for violence that made Tombstone look peaceful. The town died when silver prices crashed in 1896, but what happened during its final years created legends that persist today. According to San Bernardino County records, Calico averaged 1 murder per week during its peak years. The Boot Hill Cemetery contains over 300 graves, most marked only with wooden crosses that have long since rotted away. But county death records show significantly more deaths than graves, leading historians to wonder where the other bodies went. Walter Knott restored Calico as a tourist attraction in the 1950s, but workers during the restoration made disturbing discoveries. They found hidden rooms beneath several buildings containing personal belongings and what appeared to be makeshift living spaces. Most unsettling were the scratch marks on the walls, as if people had been trapped inside. 11. Goldfield, Nevada. Goldfield was Nevada's largest city in 1906, with 30,000 residents and the richest gold mines in the world. The town had electric streetcars, a stock exchange, and 5 newspapers. Then came 1910, and everything changed overnight. Labor disputes turned violent when mine owners brought in armed guards to break strikes. According to Nevada State Archives, federal troops occupied the town for 3 years, but the violence continued. Miners disappeared, union organizers vanished, families fled in the middle of the night, leaving behind homes full of furniture and personal belongings. Today, Goldfield has about 200 residents, but the abandoned sections tell the real story. The Goldfield Hotel, once the finest between Denver and San Francisco, sits empty with its windows boarded up. Local legend says room 109 is permanently locked because of what happened there in 1911. Hotel records from that year show a guest named Elizabeth checked in, but never checked out. Her belongings remained in the room for decades, and staff reported hearing a woman crying behind the locked door. 10. Thurmond, West Virginia. Thurmond once processed more freight tonnage than New York and Chicago combined, making it one of the busiest railroad towns in America. Trains ran through here every few minutes, carrying coal from the surrounding mountains. The town had 14 saloons, 2 banks, and a reputation for violence that kept most law enforcement away. What makes Thurmond unsettling today isn't what's there, but what's missing. The population peaked at 500 in 1930, but by 2020, only 5 people remained. The massive train depot still stands, but it's been converted to a National Park Service visitor center. Most of the town's buildings are gone, leaving only foundations and the occasional chimney rising from overgrown lots. 9. Kennecott, Alaska. Kennecott sits in the middle of Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, accessible only by a dangerous 60-mile dirt road that crosses several unbridged rivers. This copper mining town operated from 1911 to 1938, when the company shut down operations and ordered all residents to evacuate within 24 hours. The Kennecott Copper Corporation left everything behind. The 14-story mill building still contains machinery worth millions of dollars. Workers' homes have dishes on tables and clothes in closets. The hospital still has medical equipment and patient records scattered across the floors. National Park Service rangers who maintain the site report finding evidence that someone has been living in the buildings recently. Fresh food in the company store, warm ashes in fireplaces, beds that appear to have been slept in. But the access road is monitored, and no unauthorized vehicles have been recorded entering the area. In 2019, a ranger found a diary written in English, dated from the 1990s, describing daily life in the abandoned town. The handwriting analysis couldn't identify the author, and no missing persons reports matched the details described. Number 8. Terlingua, Texas. Terlingua sits in the Chihuahuan Desert, 40 miles from the nearest paved road and 80 miles from the Mexican border. This mercury mining town peaked during World War I, when mercury was essential for munitions production. The Chisos Mining Company employed over 2,000 people, making Terlingua one of the largest settlements in West Texas. But mercury mining is deadly work. According to Texas Department of Health records, Terlingua had the highest rate of mercury poisoning in the United States. Workers developed neurological problems, lost their teeth, and suffered from what locals called the shakes. The company cemetery contains over 400 graves, most from workers who died before age 40. 7. Cairo, Illinois. Cairo sits at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, once making it one of the most important ports in America. During the Civil War, it was a crucial Union supply depot. By 1920, Cairo had 15,000 residents and a thriving downtown district. Then came the racial violence. According to FBI records, Cairo experienced some of the worst racial tensions in the country during the 1960s. The town was under martial law for months. Businesses closed, families fled. By 2020, the population had dropped to fewer than 2,000 people. What makes Cairo truly disturbing is how quickly it collapsed. Entire city blocks sit abandoned. The Gem Theater, once the finest entertainment venue between St. Louis and New Orleans, has trees growing through its roof. The Cairo Public Library closed in 1978 with books still on the shelves. Local police report that vandals regularly break into abandoned buildings, but they never catch anyone. Security cameras show figures moving through empty structures, but the footage is always too dark or blurry to identify faces. Number 6. Peacher, Oklahoma. Peacher was built on top of one of the richest lead and zinc deposits in the world. For 70 years, mining companies extracted millions of tons of ore, creating a network of underground tunnels that honeycombed the earth beneath the town. By the 1990s, those tunnels began collapsing. The Environmental Protection Agency declared Peacher one of the most contaminated places in America. Lead dust covers everything. The groundwater is poisoned. Children who grew up here have learning disabilities and developmental problems at rates far above the national average. But the real horror of Peacher is what happened during the evacuation. The government offered to buy out residents and relocate them, but some refused to leave. According to Ottawa County records, about 20 people remained in town as of 2015, living among the contaminated ruins. The post office closed. The school shut down. The water system was disconnected. Those who stayed report strange phenomena. Lights in abandoned houses that turn on by themselves. Sounds of machinery coming from the sealed mine shafts. Most disturbing are the reports of children playing in the empty streets, even though no children live in Peacher anymore. 5. Monowee, Nebraska. Monowee has a population of 1. Elsie Eiler is the mayor, librarian, and sole resident of this Nebraska town that once had 150 people. She runs the Monowee Tavern, issues her own liquor license, and pays taxes to herself. What makes Monowee creepy isn't the isolation, but the infrastructure that remains for a town of 1. The grain elevator still operates. The post office delivers mail to empty houses. Streetlights turn on every night for roads that no one drives. Elsie maintains the town library in memory of her late husband, but visitors report finding books that weren't there before. New titles appear on shelves that Elsie swears she didn't add. The library guest book contains signatures from people who visited when no one was there to let them in. In 2020, a researcher found a handwritten note tucked inside a book dated from 2018, thanking Elsie for her hospitality, but Elsie has no memory of the visitor described in the note. 4. Silent Hill, Pennsylvania. The real Silent Hill isn't in Pennsylvania, but Centralia inspired the video game series. However, there is a place locals call Silent Hill, and it's not on any official maps. Located somewhere in the mountains of central Pennsylvania, this abandoned coal mining town supposedly exists but can't be found using GPS coordinates. According to urban explorers who claim to have visited, Silent Hill appears only under specific weather conditions. Thick fog rolls in from nowhere, and suddenly you can see buildings that weren't there moments before. The town looks frozen in time, with 1950s cars parked on streets and laundry hanging on lines. Multiple people have posted online about finding Silent Hill, but their photographs never show the same location twice. Pennsylvania State Police deny that any such place exists, but missing persons reports from the region describe people who were last seen driving toward a town that appeared in the fog. 3. Helltown, Ohio. Boston Township in Ohio's Cuyahoga Valley became known as Helltown after the government forced residents to sell their homes in the 1970s for a national park expansion. Most people left, but some refused to go. The government condemned their houses anyway, leaving families homeless in their own town. What happened next created the legend of Helltown. Abandoned houses were boarded up but not demolished. Families who stayed lived in cars or makeshift shelters. According to Summit County records, several residents simply vanished during this period, with no missing persons reports filed and no investigations conducted. Today, the area is part of Cuyahoga Valley National Park, but locals avoid it after dark. The abandoned church on Stanford Road supposedly holds satanic rituals. The old cemetery contains graves that are older than the town's founding date. Most disturbing is the school bus on Stanford Road, rusted and covered in graffiti, that appears in different locations despite being too damaged to drive. 2. Dudleytown, Connecticut. Dudleytown was founded in the 1740s by the Dudley family, but locals called it the Village of the Damned, long before it was abandoned. According to Connecticut state records, this small settlement in the Litchfield Hills experienced an unusually high number of unexplained deaths, suicides, and disappearances over its 200-year history. The trouble started with the Dudley family themselves. Edmund Dudley was beheaded for treason in England in 1510, and locals believed his curse followed the family to America. William Dudley, one of the town's founders, died under mysterious circumstances in 1751. His son Abiel went insane and spent his final years claiming that shadows followed him through the forest. By the 1800s, Dudleytown had earned a reputation that kept outsiders away. Residents reported that crops wouldn't grow properly. Livestock died without explanation. Children born in the town had unusually high rates of mental illness and birth defects. The 1900 census listed only 3 families remaining, and by 1920, even they had fled. Dark 1. Salem's Lot, Maine. The fictional Salem's Lot was inspired by a very real place in Maine that Stephen King refuses to name publicly. In interviews, King has mentioned driving through a small Maine town in the 1970s that felt fundamentally wrong and served as inspiration for his vampire novel. Researchers have identified several candidates for the real Salem's Lot, but one town keeps appearing in their investigations. This unnamed community in central Maine experienced a population decline that can't be explained by economic factors. According to Maine state records, families began leaving in the late 1960s, citing health concerns and family safety. But no official health hazards were ever documented. The town still exists, still has a few dozen residents, and still maintains basic services. But according to Maine Department of Transportation records, traffic through the area drops to nearly zero after sunset. Even long-haul truckers who regularly drive Route 2 report taking alternate routes at night to avoid passing through what they call that place where something's not right. These 18 towns prove that sometimes the most terrifying places in America aren't haunted houses or abandoned asylums. They're communities where real people lived, worked, and died under circumstances that still don't make complete sense. What disturbs me most about researching these places isn't the ghost stories or unexplained phenomena. It's how quickly a thriving community can become a cautionary tale, how entire populations can vanish from official records, how places that were once home to thousands of people can become locations that locals warn you to avoid after dark. Have you ever driven through a small town that felt wrong somehow? A place where you couldn't wait to get back on the highway? Let me know in the comments which of these towns you'd be brave enough to visit. And if you've got stories about creepy small towns I missed, I want to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more deep dives into America's darkest corners, and hit that notification bell because next week, we're exploring abandoned hospitals where the patients never left. Trust me, you won't want to miss that one. Sweet dreams.